Hi guys, I'm back with another card share. I have colored up another image from Diana Markham. This is part of her April digital release. And actually, as the title of the video says, this is actually a real-time coloring of this image. And that was a viewer request. So I wanted to show you the project first, and if you want to continue watching real-time the coloring of the image, then you can just keep watching. So this is not sped up at all. But you can speed it up. So if you are looking to do that, there's information in the follow-on video. So here's what I used for the card. This Spring Greetings sentiment set from Paper Tray Ink. This Venice Lace rectangular set from Spellbinders. I used the largest die out of the set because this is almost the size of an A2. It's the large frame, which is 4.15 by 5.4 inches. So that's the one that I used. And then I used this tag cross-stitch nesting set from Daisy May Design. These are Claire Rowland's designs, and I used this tag set right here, this second from the largest. So that's what I used. And then again, the copic colors you're going to see through the video. And I think, oh, here's a scrap of the paper. I use this, I believe this is from Stampin' Up. I think it's an old retired paper. I think that's where it's from. This is the gingham I used. This is a scrap of it for my card. And I used some of this tulle from the dollar store, Dollar Tree, that they had for spring. And also some ribbon from Daiso that I received from my friend Vicky. Hi Vicky. So it's this green color. So you can see there's a lot of green in this card. Here is the card. And so somebody had requested a real-time coloring video. So if you guys just want to watch it on normal speed, you can, or if you want to speed up the video, you can do that too. There's no music on this video. So I am talking through the process in my head of how I'm coloring this, just to give more cues and how I do color an image. I did not, during the coloring, do the grass and the grounding of the bunny. I did that offline after I'd finished coloring everything. So there's the tool that I use. I used it as a layer here, and I just tied a knot in the center and cut off some of the excess to make it a little shorter. And then I added another bow on top of that. And this paper is the other half of that Lawn Fawn paper that I had used for this other card here. So I just wanted to go ahead and show you the process for coloring this bunny. I used the same copic colors for this one. They're still out, actually. Here's the set of colors that I used amongst the grays and which I added. So anyway, that is my card share for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And keep watching if you want to see the real-time coloring of this image. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you soon. Bye for now. Hi, everyone. I'm back with another coloring video, simply because somebody had asked to see real-time coloring of an image. I'm going to try and do that here. But first I want to say, for those of you who are watching this real time, if you do want to speed up the video, you can always do that using the little settings icon. It's usually, it looks like a little cog, and there is a playback speed where you can speed up a video if you were not aware of that on YouTube. Conversely, you can also slow one down. So if I do put a video out there that is a sped up video, you can slow it down. I think there's 3 different settings from the normal speed from when I posted. So if you do want it to slow down so you can watch, I would suggest muting the video and slowing it down. that way. You're not distracted by the weird music or talking that I might do. So I'm going to attempt to do this, and I'm going to try and talk through some of the process in my head of what I'm doing, so that I hope that helps for those of you who are trying to learn to color. I can't say this enough that, for those of you who are trying to learn, it helped me to take some classes. There's lots of YouTube videos out there. There's lots of online classes. I personally am one of those people who prefer to learn in person sometimes, especially when it comes to certain techniques. Not for everything, but for coloring specifically, I think I felt that I learned better with an instructor leading me through things that was standing in front of me or could help, where I was having issues. So that was just me personally. Not everybody has the funds or ability to do that. So, YouTube is your next bet, or some places that some folks who are artists that actually teach that type of class, and you'll know better for yourself what is the best way for you to learn. So I'm going to try and talk through some of what I'm thinking while I'm coloring. And I'm going to use the same colors that I used for this card right here, because I think it's important for you to know what I was thinking at the time when I was kind of doing it, and so you can see some of the process. And I'll use the same technique with the dots. The dots is a nice thing because you can get your blending in, but also you don't oversaturate your color either, which I tend to do when I'm coloring with my Copics or my alcohol markers. So that's another thing that I noticed, that I tend to go over spots way more than I should probably. And that's just a part of learning, right? With the dots, you really don't do that because you can see where these points of color are coming. So I'm going to go ahead and color with the same colors that I was using for this particular card on this image that is also one of Diana Markham's. It's just the single bunny. That way it's not using all the time, but it's also a bigger image. So I'll try and talk as well while I'm coloring so that you can kind of get a gist of what I'm doing. So again, using the same colors that I was using before. A lot of times what I do, and you'll see me do this a lot, is I'll start with the lightest color. And you can really start in either whichever color you feel most comfortable. But I a lot of times will start with the lightest color just because I'm mapping out in my head and visually where I want to lay down the darker color. And most people don't have to do this, but it's a reminder for me where I want the darkest shade. And you also probably should take a section at a time. In other words, I am not a fast colorist. It takes me a long time. So when I color, I tend to break it up into sections. And the reason I do that is because with alcohol markers, the idea is being able to blend, right? So the alcohol ink doesn't get a chance to dry out. I work in sections. And that's just something that I've learned about myself when I color. Okay? So this first step here is just me mapping out where I want to put some of these darker colors. And you'll notice when I do these dots that the darker shades will be towards the places where you have shadowing. And I never know where to put my cap so that you can see it. Sometimes I hold my cap and you don't ever see it. So that's why you'll see me show the cap end sometimes, because I forget. When I put it in my hand, you can't actually see it. So this is the next shade darker. I'm working my way up, but you don't have to do that. So let's just say I decide this is taking too long, and I switch to, this is not my darkest color, but it is the darker color that I want to use on most of the image. You will see me come back and use a darker color, even darker than this one. This is E43. I have one more that's darker, and I usually keep, again, as I said before, I will keep the darker shades towards where you have more shading of the bunny ears. So you got to decide where your light source is going to be and where your shadows are going to lay, and keep your darker colors concentrated towards where you have shadow. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, and I probably should not hold it at an angle because I want more of a dot than a little teardrop looking shape. But because I'm recording this, that's what I'm doing, which I probably shouldn't. So I'm just saying that so you know. Now I'm going to work my way up to the lighter colors again with more dots, filling in some of these darker spaces. And so you have to consider the light source, where your light is coming from, to determine where that darker shade is going to be on your image. And as I'm doing this, you're seeing that, you know, this is also blending the colors. Now, let me also just say, I am not an expert at this. So I hope you're not looking for some excellent, I'm just going to offer you what I have, okay? So you guys can see what I do, and if you decide for yourself that this is how you want to try, go for it. I say go for it. This is just crafting. Nobody's going to judge you for your mistakes. At least I definitely won't. So I say go for it. Everybody makes mistakes. We're all just having fun. That's what it's about. At least that's what it is for me. It's not so serious all the time. So notice I'm taking this lighter color marker out into his face a little bit more. So I have a little more color in his face, but it's lighter. And I'm not bringing that dark color out. One more light color. The E40 is the lightest color. Here's another tip too. If you don't know what colors to choose, if you're having a hard time choosing colors, watch some YouTube videos or go to some blogs and see what color combinations other people use. Try them out. If you like them, great. If you want to try something different, great. You know, you can always do that. There's no hard and fast rule on how you come about doing things. When you get comfortable with it, you know, you might want to branch out into something else. It's all part of learning. So, yes, I mean, I encourage you to do that because you know, this is how we figure out things for ourselves, right? We try things and then we get rid of the things we don't like and we keep the things that we do like. So I hope you can see this well enough to see what I'm doing. And at some point you will see that these dots don't look like dots. They look more like shading. And that's to trick your eye a little bit. That's on purpose. So I'm just coming back to add some more of the dark dots back in, because when you do a lot of the lighter shades, you tend to end up blending those darker shades out. And that's what I end up doing every time instead of using this dots technique, I do blending. I end up having to come back with my darkest color to put some of that back in. And I know that about myself. It's fine. I don't beat myself up over it, but you know, I know that that's what I'm doing when I choose to go with that darker shade or lighter shades half the time. So I'm bringing back some of that shading is what I'm doing by adding this darker color in here now. So and again, I'm purposely putting it so that it's closer to where the shadows would be for his ears and his face. So now I have this really dark E44, not really dark, but you know, it's darker than the others, that I'm just gonna come back in with just a little bit, not a whole lot, because I don't want it to look like too dark, but I'm just adding a little bit. And again, this is closest to where the shadows would be for the bunny given the direction of the light. So there's more shading towards his head and here under his neck. Just a little bit. All right. Now I'm going to do his cheek, because, you know, he's got to have a little rosy cheek. This is, again, holding the cap. That doesn't help you see what the color it is. Just going to add this little pink cheek for him, where his whiskers are, and also get his nose in here. And then I'm going to blend it out a little bit with a lighter shade. Whoops. The other thing too is, for those of you who do this often, don't open your marker over your work. Do you know why that is? Because the ink can splatter from your marker onto your work, and then it may ruin the image you've already so perfectly colored, right? And so all that time you spent making sure you got the perfect shading, the right color, it goes downhill because you opened your marker over your work. So move it away from the work, open the cap, and then start coloring. Just a little tip that you might want to use. All right, I'm going to move on to his body. I might come back to the head a little bit. I see that there's, you know, some places that could be better, but I'm not going to beat myself up over it. So I'm starting again with the darkest now. Not the darkest, but instead of doing all that light shading that I did at the beginning, I'm going to start with the darker color that I use a lot more of. And I'm just following the cues in the image where there's little dots. That's where she's indicated there's shading. So if you have a stamped image where these dots are hiding out, like here, you can see them, right? I'm just putting my ink there, my darkest ink there, because that's where I believe the shading is. Okay? So like the belly of the bunny right here, where his leg would normally crease, his knee, because his belly's kind of hanging over here, and his toes down here at the bottom of his foot, his little rump, and even in his tail here towards the hind end, he's got some darker spots. Okay, back here under the chin, I put a few here in his right under this carrot line here. These are darker shades of the color, so that's where I'm putting my darkest shade of my ink. And now we're going to work up the numbers, so lighter in color. All right, we're going to increase the number of dots. So I don't want to talk through the whole thing. I never know what all to talk about, so give him some toes and his kneecap, his little belly. I think I'm going to keep this a little, try and see if I can keep him more white on the belly part. I'm just going to add some in here in between the leaves of the carrot, just to give it some color in there. All right. So let's keep going, adding more lighter color. And you'll notice that I'm keeping sort of the center part of his arm here on the lighter shade, because the sun would be hitting it. And so he'd be lighter along the top line of his arm. And I'm not super picky about the size of the circles, but you want to keep them more, you know, obviously on the smaller side. You want to keep them consistent if you can. So I hope that's coming together for you. You can see the color. And the other thing I didn't mention, you'll see me turn my work around a lot. You'll see me turn the work upside down, and that's just so that I can get closer to the spot that I'm coloring. And because I'm at the bottom of the bunny, his body, that's why. And I'm focusing on coloring that. That's why I've got it turned the way I do. And it really is more of your preference. It has nothing to do with me. It has more to do with what's easier for you to color. So I say do that, you know. Whatever is most comfortable for you is what you should do. Okay. Now, that was E40, so we're going to go back the other direction. So we're just blending color now. Blending the shades together. And so you can see those darker colors that I put in earlier, they're kind of fading away because they're blending with all the other colors that I put in. So I'm going to want to bring some of those back, and I do that by, again, using some of those darker colors to come back with. I don't often, you know, with the dots it's easier for me to control the ink. I don't often go all the way to the edge of the bunny. I don't put a line in there. You know, these are all dots. So I try to keep some of that white edge there to make the body look rounder. If you leave that little white edge around the edge of his arm, say, for example, you can kind of see it. It'll make the object look round. Object. In other words, the bunny. Sometimes I forget to do that. See, there's a lot of things going on in my head while I'm doing this, so it's not as if I remember them all. And it's one of those things that I have to remind myself of. So I'm at E42. I have one more darker color other than the darkest shade that I use very little of. So I'm being very careful or intentional about where these dots are going. It's not that I'm just putting them everywhere I want. I am really thinking about, does it need that darker area? And is it a shaded area? And so you'll see me doing it, keeping the darker colors towards where those shadows would be again. So that's what I'm putting back in, these colors here. Just a few. Does that make sense, guys? I hope it does. You guys can tell me if this is useful or not. I don't know. Some of you guys already know how to do this, so in that case, I don't know why you're watching me. just for watching. Right? I do that too. I like watching people that, you know, I enjoy to watch, so. Okay, so this is E43. I probably shouldn't put too much around. Let me control myself here, because I'm talking, so I'm not thinking. That's the other part that messes me up. When I talk too much, I'm not thinking enough. Guys. All right, now again, this is the one that I used very little of. That's the darkest color I have out for the browns, the E's. I'm just going to put a little bit in here in some of these darker spots. I'm not going to use a lot of it, and it's just to add back some of this shading that I want here in the body. But again, I don't use it a lot. So you can decide if, you know, if it needs it or not. Sometimes it doesn't. I just feel like the more contrast you get, the better your image will kind of work itself out. How does he look? Or she, I should say, because she has a flower in her hair. So you see me coming back now to the top, which I had let dry. So this technique, you know, you don't want your ink to dry out because the blending part is the part that you want, right? You don't want the ink to dry up and then not be able to blend. So there's the bunny. Pretty easy, right? The carrot, I can do same colors as the little flower pot here. It's orange, so I purposely, you know, left all these out so I could color this image. So Y38 is the darkest of the colors I have in here. So I'm just gonna sort of line up in here. I'm not going to use the dots for the carrot. I'm gonna blend out. I'm gonna use the blending. So really down here is probably the darkest part of the carrot, plus under his, where his hand is. You see that? So I went in with the darkest color first. And then this Y35 is my mid-tone. So I'm going to go out, extend out the color a little bit more. I'm not going right up against the line. I'm going sort of over the darker orange and bringing it out a little bit. Right? And then I will do the same. I will fill in the color with the last Y32. See, I never know where to put the caps. If you notice, I have a problem with that. When I'm coloring in my videos, I never know where to put the caps so that you guys can see the cap and I don't knock it over or it's not on my work. I don't recommend you put it on your work, even though you see me do that. It's because I never know where you're going to see it. And plus, sometimes I know, for instance, I'm not going to cut this image out like I did with this one, right? I will cut it out, but it won't be close to the bunny. It's going to have more white space. So I don't want to put my cap on my work because I'm going to use some of this white space on my finished project. So I'm just going to go back. I'm going back now and adding some of this darker shading to the carrot. And then we'll do that again one more time with the darkest color. Right here up against the line of the carrot where his hand is, because that's where you would see a shadow. And probably underneath the carrot here, the topper, because it's upside down. And then on this side where his hand is. And then my last step, I'm going to take the lightest color and actually blend some of this color out because I can see the line. I'm using the lightest color simply because I don't want to lose some of this contrast. Okay. It's a small object. You don't want to get too in detail there. I want to add some of that darker mid-tone in there, back in there. I feel like I lost it. Back in the creases here. All right, that's enough with the orange. Now we've got really, really tiny leaves with the carrot, and then up here in the bunny's head. I didn't do the ears yet, which I probably could do those now. I'm going to use the same color. Well, I'm going to use 3 colors for the ears. Not these 3. Okay. So the same color I used for the cheek is what I'm going to use for the ears. And again, I'm going to blend them out. So I'm going to turn it upside down just simply because it makes the ears closer to me. So my darkest color is this RV2, which you can't see because, again, I have problems figuring out where I'm putting that. So my darkest color is actually going to go up against this closest to the head, right? And then I'm going to use a lighter shade. Make sure I have the correct one. So I'm just basically coloring over and blending these two shades together. And then you'll see me do the same thing with the next shade. It's weird to talk through this, honestly, because I'm used to not talking while I'm coloring. I'm going to go over that line where the two colors meet. You can kind of see the shading from dark to light here. I will come back and add some more of that darker color in because I feel like I lost a little bit of it. Now, I purposely chose, you know, different in the wreath, with the wreath bunny, I purposely chose different colors of pink so that you would see some flowers lighter than others. I don't know what color I'm going to do this flower here, but because I haven't decided yet. But because we don't have the wreath, that's a different story. So we'll see what color that flower ends up being. I think it's going to be yellow. Why not? All right, there we go. Pink ears. All right. So next I'm going to start in with the greens here. I had used two different sets of greens. I'm going to use these right here. Yeah. Or maybe I want the darker. No. Okay. I'm going to use the lighter set. So that's YG01. And I'm just going to go through and dot some of these leaves in a brighter yellow or yellow-green. And then I'll come back with a darker. There's not so much shading in this because these are such small leaves. It's not going to matter what you're doing there. Okay? So don't stress over that. And then I'm going to take these smaller leaves as well up here in the head and do the same thing. But I will not color these large leaves here with the same. I just want the contrast of the greens. So you'll see next I'll use a different set for these larger leaves here. I just want that contrast too. Let me work these little carrot leaves here. So here's the next darkest color. Just gonna take some of these and make some darker. I'm just picking random ones, honestly. The ones closest to the head would have more shading, you know, darker shading, because again, it's going to be darker or closer to the head, so there'll be a shadow. So, and then here's the darkest green I have for these smaller leaves. So I'm going to take some of these closer to the carrot and randomly color them darker. Now you can do them however you want. There's such a small space that it doesn't really matter. Don't stress over it. This is supposed to be fun. Okay? So now you can see all those little tiny leaves colored. Now, like I said, I wanted to show a different color of the greens for the larger leaves. So for these larger leaves, I have 2 different greens. You can use 3. It's up to you. These are so close in color, I don't think it's going to matter. So I'm going to, in the center of the leaf, you can't see that, I'm going to color this YG25, because most of the time when you look at a leaf, the center part is the darkest, because that's where that vein runs. And in this case, it's tucked right behind a flower, so it would be darkest towards the center, towards the flower, in other words, and lighter on the edges. So that's what I've colored. And this might get hidden because my color is so close. This is a YG23. 23, I should say. Wouldn't stress over it. You can just go back and add some of the darker shade if you want. I think I did it opposite with the wreath drawing. I think I did these with the lighter ones that I used for the smaller leaves, and then so there we go. I'm not gonna fuss with it too much now. Just the center flower left. I'm gonna color this flower yellow, just because I feel like it. So I've got, oh, actually, hold on. I've got, okay, 3 shades of yellow. Do you need 3 shades? Yeah, it's such a small flower. Why? I don't know that you'd necessarily need that, but I'm going to color the center darker. What do I have out here? 15. 1, 5. All right. Let's see. Put the cap in the right spot. So the center of the flower is usually darker. And closer to the center, right? So even the petals, they're usually darker. Depending on where your light source is, I would say that. Let me say it that way. Then I'm just going to work my way outward to do some blending. So the tips of the leaves or the petals are going to be lighter in color. It works for me. If you guys want to do it a different way, do it a different way. So that should be it. Now I'm going to come back with a darker color because I want to put some of that darker center in there, because I lost some of that. It's such a small thing. See, I held the cap just then and didn't show it to you. That was Y13 or 1-3. Sometimes I forget, you know, because I'm just coloring along. All right. There she is, guys. She's super cute. And again, I didn't mention this before. I always keep a piece of paper underneath in case there's a bleed through. There's my image on the back side. This is 110 pound paper. It's the Hammer Mill. And she doesn't have any other detail around her. I do want to add some gray, which I don't have out. So I'm going to do this off camera, but I like to ground my image if I can remember to do it, so she's not floating out in outer space. And I'll probably add some grass around her. But again, I want to use some of the same markers that I've been using for the grass, I think. And I might use some colored pencils. I don't know. But that's the colored image, just to show you a real-time version of it. I hope this helps, and I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.